My dad put my brother Johnny in charge of the Sparks.
Okay.
And David Stern said, Jerry, I don't understand, Johnny's capable, but it would kind of make sense that Jeanie would run the team.
Right.
And my dad said, Jeanie's going to run the Lakers someday.
Yo, welcome to another episode of In a Minute with Evan Lovett, coming to you live from the I Am Studios in the heart of Los Angeles. And with me today, I have somebody who has orchestrated the heartbeat of Los Angeles in her tenure as the owner, governor, CEO of the Los Angeles Lakers. I am honored and privileged to be here with Jeanie Buss. Thank you so much for coming to the I Am Studios. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of your show. So I just feel like there's so much about LA that people don't know. And there's so many interesting facts and you kind of pull them together. And I learn something new every time I listen to you.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. We love this city. We celebrate this city. And again, I say it, but it's the truth. I grew up, people always said there's no history and culture in Los Angeles. And maybe we celebrate the wrong things at some time, but there is so much history and culture. And that's what we try to uncover and explore together. And I want to mention on the intro, I was a little bit short. Jeanie Buss, as we know, owner of the Lakers, but also co-founder of Women of Wrestling, co-founder of Soro Tequila, and also one of the most inspirational, important, innovative people, not just in sports, but in the United States, but absolutely most importantly in Los Angeles. So really, truly a trailblazer. And again, I can't use enough superlatives for what you've been able to accomplish and what you're continuing to accomplish here in LA. So again, thank you for that. I just didn't want to shortchange that at all.
Thank you.
And yeah, quick word from our sponsor, Culver City Toyota. You guys know it. Go see George. He'll give you $500 dealer cash off any pre-owned or new Toyota, Corolla, Camry. I might get back in another Prius. I don't know. I'm looking at cars right now, but whatever you want, Toyota, go over there and see George. Culver City Toyota is awesome. They're friendly. They're nice. It's not like a typical dealership, but so go see them. Washington Boulevard. All right, Jeanie Buss, you are the steward of one of the most important brands in the world. I don't think that that's an overstatement. The Los Angeles Lakers, recognizable, valuable, accomplished, champions. I mean, this is the pinnacle of sports organizations, but just as far as a company, what does that mean to you to have that responsibility and really be the Lakers?
Well, it's a lot of pressure, and I think you just applied a lot more by just what you just said. But no, it is. I do believe people in my position were responsible to shepherd a brand. And my father built the brand of the Lakers. People who love Los Angeles will, his story was when he was a young boy, his mom, he was born in Wyoming. They came and visited LA when he was a young kid, and he fell in love with the city. And as soon as he was able to, he moved to LA and, invested in real estate, got his PhD at the age of 21, from USC.
In chemistry? Is that right?
Physical chemistry, which is like basically rocket science.
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw.
And so, but he wanted to go to USC because they had the best football team. So he loves sports, right. But he's a mathematical genius and made his money in real estate in the 60s. And he decided he really wanted to pursue his love of sports. And he wanted to give Los Angeles a team that they could be proud of. And he felt that that there was such an East Coast bias in the media that teams like the Dodgers, like the Lakers, like who cares? It's all about the Yankees and the Celtics. And he wanted to give the city that he fell in love with, that loved him back, a team to be proud of. And that's what he built with the Lakers. And that's the responsibility that I feel in continuing that vision that he had about what this team means to this community. And, there's so many examples of, when Magic Johnson, announced he had to retire because of HIV, that the Lakers are on the forefront of not only, sports, but also, what's happening in the world. And that is a big responsibility.
The Lakers transcend sports. They transcend LA. And what's Laker news is national, if not international news. And again, I was kind of saving this for later, but you sort of just brought it up. Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, two specific tragic events. And luckily, Magic's story has turned from tragedy to triumph, which is amazing in itself. But those are two Lakers stories that were off the court stories, but obviously deeply affected the Laker organization, the city of Los Angeles, the United States, and the world. What I want to know is, what do you remember about the Magic Johnson announcement? Because I'll tell you, for me, and this is funny, I was in junior high. There was a kid, Jim Hicks, by the way, wherever you are, Jim, shout out. But he said Magic has AIDS, right? That's how it said to me, right? Magic. And this was in 92-ish, 91, 92, 91. And again, that was, AIDS, this thing people didn't really understand. There was stigmas around it. And as a kid, you're like, wait, what? That doesn't even add up. What does that mean? But I'll never forget getting in the car. My dad picked me up from school that day. And sure enough, the radios, my dad had this just ghostly look on his face, and then the rest, and you're like, wow, what does this mean? But as somebody who was involved in the Lake organization, what was that like that moment, finding that out, and having to see the organization react to, and adapt to that news?
I mean, as we back then we just didn't have all the information, right? Like having the HIV virus is a lot different than having AIDS,
right? And important to know, by the way, it was reported to me as AIDS, but yes, we understand that. But
HIV, nobody really knew that. It was all this information coming at us, and as there were many people who were HIV positive that didn't want to share the news. Right. If you were in entertainment, you kept it a secret, and hopefully the weight loss didn't give you away. Wow. And but Magic, what he did by embracing it and becoming the face of HIV, and facing the cameras, he never shied away from the challenge. You talk about watching a leader in real time and how they handle things. Obviously Magic is somebody that I grew up with. We're only 2 years in age difference. So I'd only seen my dad cry one other time in his life, and that was when his mother passed away, my grandmother. When my dad was just bawling his eyes out. Because we thought it was going to be the end, and here was this person that we loved so much. And people talk about, when we retire a player's jersey, we usually, for the Lakers, we usually wait till they go in the Hall of Fame. You can't qualify for the Basketball Hall of Fame till you've been retired for 5 years. So it's usually 5 years from the day you retire till your, jersey gets retired. We immediately retired his jersey because we wanted him to be there. Yeah. And we didn't know, was he going to make it 5 years? There was so much that we were all scared, except Magic. Right.
I remember that. Again, that's his hallmark, is that relentless positivity, and that, again, the megawatt smile that you always see. And even that press conference where nobody, and it's funny because I remember, listen, my uncle had just passed away from AIDS 2 years prior, right? But again, I was little. I saw the ravages of what that disease did. And, it was very hard. So my mom's brother was hard for the whole family to deal with. And like, his mother, my grandma was still alive, and we had to deal with that. And I kind of expected Magic to come out, even though it was just an announcement, weak and feeble. Because again, you didn't really, and there's Magic Johnson. Right. That looks like Magic Johnson. Right. And like just being strong and smiling kind of through. And you're like, wait, is this going to be okay? Like he kind of just has that magic.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, it was kind of like, okay, what do I do next? Like he was just like that leadership of, accepting the challenge. Okay. All right. Well, now what do I do? Now what do I do? And he never said like, get the cameras away from me. Let me have my time. Like he just, he embraced, he found the best doctors. He did what they told him to do, and he talked about it, and he raised awareness so that people would get tested, and we got thousands of letters because people didn't know what to do. So now I've got boxes and boxes of letters that I had to open each one because people were sending like $1.
Wow.
And just people didn't know what to do with the emotions. And he was a beacon in a time of fear and doubt. And, he's really an amazing person.
And that really kind of brought HIV and AIDS into the forefront. I think brought a lot of understanding to that community, to that disease, and to the fact that lo and behold, here we are 30 something years later, Magic's still going strong. He's still Magic Johnson. But let's back up a little bit. What I want to know is about Jeanie Buss. Okay. I know that you were 17, I believe, when your dad purchased the Lakers, the Forum, and the Kings.
The LA Kings.
And the LA Kings.
Yep.
Okay. And what was that like? Did you just come home from school one day and your dad's like, guess what? We own the Lakers now. Or like, what was that process like of you sort of finding out that like, wait a minute, now we own the Lakers? Like you said, your dad did want to bring the sports and the spotlight to the West Coast. So it had to be percolating. But how did that go about? And how did a 17-year-old Jeanie Buss kind of respond and react to that?
I mean, I was a senior in high school at Palisades High School. Go Dolphins. And, he said, do you know what this means? This means that when the Rolling Stones come to the Forum, you can sit on the stage if you want. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But, his focus was really the Lakers. And I had... when I was in high school, I played on the girls' basketball team, never made varsity. I was terrible, but I loved it. And I was also the scorekeeper for the boys' team. Okay. So I loved basketball. I loved all the teamwork. And so I gravitated to that. I wouldn't go to a hockey game, because my only experience with hockey was seeing the movie Slapshot. Okay. And I was afraid I would get hit by a puck if I went.
Those teeth, man. Right? Missing teeth all across.
And my dad would get so frustrated with me because he would say, like, you have to come to a hockey game. You love it. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But, going to the concerts like Elton John and Rod Stewart. And I mean, it was like every teenage girl's dream.
Did your life change overnight at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I was starting USC that fall, and just the social life was, doing really well. I never joined a sorority or anything like that. And, my dad put me to work the following summer to run a tennis team. And, so I kind of regret that I didn't have a really deep connection. I didn't make a lot of friends while I was at USC because, I just had a lot of stuff to do with,
Were you a workaholic? Was was that what it was about?
So you make it sound bad. I mean,
no,
I just loved what I was doing. I was, I was like, my dad trusted me. So like anything, that needed to get done, he would throw at me, and I was too, naive to know what I couldn't do. And
it's a great thing though.
It was. And he just saw that I gravitated and I loved to work and put in the time and solve problems.
I want to talk about you running that tennis team, the Los Angeles Strings,
yes.
correct?
Yes.
Of World Tennis Tour, but I think it had a different
World Team Tennis.
Okay. And now I think we need to go back in time a little bit in the sense that tennis was a big deal, especially in Los Angeles in the late 70s and early 80s, where it kind of defined the style, the culture, and tennis players were superstars. Yes. Whether it was Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova, or Bjorn Borg and guys like that, like, it was a big deal. Tennis was coming off of Arthur Ashe from UCLA, groundbreaking trailblazer. So tennis was a big deal. But your dad made you the general manager of this LA at 19 years old, right? Yeah. That is a humongous responsibility. 19 years old, I think I had just completed working a job at a batting cage, collecting tokens and helping people hit, and had graduated into becoming a bank teller at B of A, which I thought was a big deal because I was wearing a shirt and tie every day. But being the GM of a sports team, what was that like? Talking about getting thrown into the fire. And again, these are big names, and tennis was a big deal. Ilie Natasi.
Yeah, I mean, it was. My dad. Like, I remember I had to draft the team and put the team together, and I asked for his help, and he goes, "No, I'm not going to help you because I want you to know what it's like. I want you to have the success or feel the failure." And, because it's a lonely job to be at the top. And he was obviously his first year of owning the Lakers, they won a championship. He drafts Magic Johnson. They win a championship, right? It's great. But he couldn't figure out how to win with the LA Kings.
Right.
The hockey team really frustrated him. And so he wanted somebody that he could commiserate with. Yeah. Like, okay, who have you drafted? Why did you make that move? Who's your coach? And so he kind of wanted me to feel that same feeling, on a much smaller scale, less risk.
No, but at 19, though, that's...
I know, but he wanted to see if it was something that I really wanted to do, and I did. And I've drafted Martina Navratilova. We won the championship my first year, so I think I did pretty good. But it was interesting. And when you own an arena like the Forum, right, and you have a hockey team and a basketball team, that takes up about 100 nights a year. Okay. You still have 265 nights you got to fill. And so my dad he was trying to figure out what else could he put in to the Forum that would bring in revenue. Yeah. And he created what was then called the Senate Seat program, and everything at the Forum was like Roman inspired, right? So there had to be like these clever names, and the ushers and usherettes wore like Roman outfits. But it was kind of cool to go to the Forum and have this experience. And so he created these seats called the Senate seats, which were basically the seats between the baskets in the lower bowl. And when you bought the seat, you bought it for every event that was at the Forum. Okay. So there needed to be as many concerts and family events in addition to basketball. 265
other nights. Yeah.
So it was basically creating a suite that you see now at arenas that the Forum didn't have. So it was like a year-round seat. So he was very much ahead of his time in how he packaged, how he marketed, like when he bought the Lakers, the seats on the floor, there was two prices. There was the upstairs and there's the downstairs.
Yeah.
And my dad, with his real estate background, said, wait a minute, the seats on the floor are,
not all equal.
Yeah. So like that's when the prices started changing. And, for, some people weren't happy about it, but, it was all about location.
And that actually helped create some of the exclusivity that became, front row at a Laker game. Like it doesn't get any bigger than that, like to this day. Tell me about the Forum, your early memory, because that's when my dad was taking me down to see some Showtime Lakers. And again, those are some of my formative years, early memories. Again, of course, Magic, Worthy, Captain Kareem, Byron Scott, Cooper. But the Forum was it was the venue, the place to be. I knew it was a fabulous forum. It was the Great Western Forum for a long time. And you actually ended up running the Great Western Forum, right? How did that work out? What was that like for you? And then also during the era where, look, the Forum went from the premier arena in Los Angeles and one of the most premier in the West Coast to maybe not quite as premier of an arena. And how do you deal with that? What were those responsibilities like?
Yeah, arenas age, they really do. And it's heartbreaking. And, we played at the Forum like 30 plus years. Yeah. But in terms of me becoming in charge of the Forum, it was 1995. And one of my mentors, Claire Rothman, ran the arena for 20 plus years. She was hired by Ticketmaster. So she left and my dad, had to replace her. And he came to me and he said, as your boss, I think this is a job you could do. But as your father, I'm telling you not to take it because it's going to really affect your life. And I had just been divorced. And it is all consuming when when you have a venue, you have to be there in the morning and then you got to stay late at night. And so, you're talking 14-hour days and I really had no social life and I was in my 30s and, my dad didn't want to see me miss my life, but I had that kind of ambition where it was, I want to challenge myself. And thankfully that experience was really important because as a promoter, I promoted events at the Forum, but I'd never been on the venue side, which was understanding and working with the unions and, customer service, concessions, box office, all those things that I needed to learn.
Were you guys in response? Okay.
And, the Forum, that is one thing, a negative thing about the Forum is that we had about 3,800 parking spots, which means, it's about parking for about 7,000 people. Right.
And we know in LA, everybody does drive. Especially back then, there weren't alternate options. 17,505 was the attendance for a while. I remember. Yeah.
And so we would have our overflow parking. We needed Hollywood Park to open up, and that always caused a friction. And anyway, the Forum is, even though it aged, now it's gone through a renaissance. And now because of the way the architecture is, without all those suites, because basically when you build an arena and you put, 2 levels in the example of Crypto.com Arena, there's 3 levels of suites. It's like putting a building in the middle of an arena and it kind of kills the connection. It makes it difficult to connect with the upper level, right? Yes. And so the Forum, when you go back there, it is very intimate and artists love it because it sounds great. So, so even though it aged, it now it's in retrospect, thank goodness it's still around and artists all want to play there.
Yeah, there's some good shows there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I like that there, that it's still there. It's still, it's still productive. And I think what's amazing about it is when Jack Kent Cooke built the building, he's the one who bought the Lakers when they moved to LA.
Yes.
And then he got the expansion team from the NHL to have the hockey team. And at that time, they were playing at the sports arena in LA.
Right.
And the city council said, we don't want hockey here. Like, it doesn't belong here.
Wow.
And Cook was so shocked by that. And, he ended up building the Forum in Inglewood and moving the teams there. But he did such a great job because people don't realize that half that building is built underground, because what he wanted to create was an experience where half the people are coming in and walking down to their seats, right? So everybody felt like I go down, like I'm close to the action because I have to be go down the stairs to get there. So, it's like Dodger Stadium too. It's such an amazing facility that you really can't replace. You just have to continue to try to upgrade with all the bells and whistles that customers have become used to.
And that's such good experience too, where you're getting, and again, throughout your career, I mean, look, general manager, not just of the Los Angeles Strings, but I think of the Los Angeles Blades also, right? The roller hockey team. And now again, when Gretzky came to Los Angeles overnight, to your point, I don't think there were too many people, and I'm painting with a broad brush, but hockey was not a huge deal in Los Angeles, okay? With the purple and gold Kings. I know Marcel Dion, Rogie Vachon, they had some great players, Robitaille, all this kind of stuff, still with the Kings. But when Gretzky came to LA, overnight, all the kids in the neighborhood had rollerblades. They had those fold-up goals. We were all playing roller hockey, and hockey became a thing.
Yep.
And so then the Los Angeles Blades developed roller hockey league. Listen, I remember it faintly, but how did that fit in, and how did that start in your role of running that organization as well? Because all of this ended up culminating in who you are today, right? Like you said, you need this experience, some success, some failure, and this is definitely a challenge. Let's call it what it is, right? A professional roller hockey league. I want to say 93 that you were in charge of, right? During the peak, right? Post Showtime. So we know the Lakers are up here. Yeah. And then was it your dad who's like, we're doing this, you're running it?
Yeah, I mean, what he said that I was basically in charge of Orphan sports, that anything that anything they could put into an arena, he put on my desk. So I had to go see arena football. And unfortunately, because the Forum had the center hung scoreboard, we couldn't get the clearance to do arena football. So we never had an arena football team. But he sent me in the mid 80s to Moscow to
wow, in the 80s.
In the 80s. And so, I mean, it was such an experience, but to negotiate with the cultural ministry to bring the Moscow circus to Los Angeles, and
unsolicited. This was just like an idea.
I'm 26 years old. I'm flying to trying to get these meetings, and it's like this expectation that you have that you're going to go to a meeting, and business is run just like business anywhere. And, it was very different. Like we never made a deal, but I learned a lot about just how the world operates. And anyway, so.
Hold on. I'm intrigued on that, because that was peak communist Russia,
Oh yeah,
right?
it was Gorbachev. Yeah.
I just watched that Tetris movie, by the way. Great movie, to be honest with you. If you guys haven't seen the story of Tetris, it's pretty incredible. It was like
Really?
smuggled out of Russia, which is how it kind of like took over the world. Yeah, it was developed there. So in the movie, there's like recreations of what, and this is what I'm imagining in your head, because it's not meetings, it's layers upon layers upon layers of like bureaucracy and approval, and you're not even sure who you're actually talking to. But so Russia.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, brought the attorney, Claire Rothman, who was running the arena at the time, where we go into the meeting and they were very proud because they had Pepsi, you know, like Pepsi was like, you know, all Americans drink Pepsi. So they had the Pepsi for us. And so there was a point in
I actually like Coca-Cola. Sorry. No, go on.
It was like a point in the negotiations where like we needed to like confer privately. And so we took a break and it was basically like, who's going to pay to transport the bears? You know, like whatever it was like something crazy like that. And so we kind of agreed what our bottom line would be in terms of it while we're negotiating. So now we're like, okay, the break's over. They come back in. They immediately start answering all the questions that we were talking about and why we had this expectation that they weren't listening to everything we said.
Yeah,
they were. So it was like, it's like we're like in America, we are given this expectation of, you know, like laws and like, you know, privacy
protocol. Yeah.
And like, and it didn't exist. I was like, wow, what an experience. I'm just glad I got out of there. It was like,
man. So the circus never came to town.
Came to town, but I did gymnastics events.
Did you run boxing?
I did not run boxing.
Okay.
Volleyball, like, you know, just all these like strange sports. So when he said, Jeannie, we just bought a team in the indoor roller hockey, and I burst into tears. I'm like, I can't take another thing like this. And you know, we put on an exhibition game the first year, and then the league started the second year, and I absolutely fell in love with the sport because at first I thought I was going to have to teach really good inline skaters how to play hockey, but instead hockey players learned how to inline skate. And then cool. it was like, oh, this is fantastic, because all these minor league hockey players, it gave them a way to make money in the summertime. And they loved it. And of course, inline skates really changed the whole the ability to do like turn stops and, you know, finding the right surface. And really this league had so much potential because we owned the patent on the puck. So the puck that we were using, we were going to make a royalty every time one was sold. And so that to me was like that's going to make sure that the league lasts during the hard times. And in my thought, these 12-year-olds that are playing and taking over the streets, in 10 years, when they're our ticket buyer, that's all we have to do is last 10 years and we're going to have a sport. I'm going to be in the professional roller hockey Hall of Fame. Like this is what I'm going to do till I'm 90 years old, because it was an equal opportunity sport, because ice was so hard to get in LA. And like you said, when Gretzky came, there was this boom, but there wasn't enough infrastructure for everybody to play. It was all
about the isoplex. That's where we all had to go if we wanted to get some ice. Yeah.
And so here's this sport that you could play outdoors. And I remember David Stern, then the commissioner of the NBA, calling me and saying, what is this sport that you're working on, the roller hockey? He goes, I have my concerns because the kids are taking over basketball courts.
Yes, we were.
And he did not like that. He did not. And so, you know, it was like we had all the ingredients to be big, but just like every league that fails, we had We expanded from 12 teams the first year to 24 the next year. We let in, owners that were underfunded. Then we had people that wanted to play outdoors. Well, if you play outdoors in Sacramento in July, the bugs that your lights attract. I mean, there was one game where we had to play outdoors, and guys were just slipping over all the bug guts because it was like,
wow,
they were skating over bugs, like such stuff. I'll never forget. Like, we really wanted to invest and have this like great opening where the players like came through like, dry ice, like the smoke, and that's what they did in hockey. So let's just take those ideas and dim the lights and put the spotlights on the players, and they come through the smoke. Well, when you use dry ice on a dry surface, there's condensation. So as we're like, each guy's being introduced, they're going through the dry ice, and then they disappear because they can't.
Lesson
learned. You can't do dry ice on a dry surface. So, it was those kind of things that I was really living Slapshot, like ironically.
Go back to
that. It was just, we lasted 8 years and the league folded. And I still can't believe it hasn't come back.
It should. I mean, look, it's a fun sport. It's a good sport. It's probably. And do you still have the patent on the puck, by the way?
No, the patent became. We ended up fighting with a person who said he invented it. So there was a lot of lawsuits, and
so
it's just a shame.
About that time, is that when the Sparks came into fruition?
Yeah, at that time the Sparks in the I forget, like the mid 90s,
like 96, 97. I'm sort of somewhere around there.
I should know that by heart. But and I remember my dad put my brother Johnny in charge of the Sparks.
Okay.
And David Stern said, Jerry, I don't understand. Johnny's capable, but it would kind of make sense that Jeanie would run the team.
Right.
And my dad said, Jeanie's going to run the Lakers someday. So, David Stern told me that story, and like, that made me. My dad believed in me.
So let's go back to this relationship with your dad, because that's what I think is one of the most fascinating things. Why did he entrust you with so much responsibility? What was it about your relationship? And what was it like growing up with him, but also to a certain extent with the Showtime Lakers, one of the premier teams in sports history, like straight up?
It was a lot of fun.
Yes. He
was like the original girl dad. He empowered me. When I started working for him, I said I had started USC, and I said, well, okay, now I can quit school. And he said, no, you have to finish school, otherwise you can't have a job. Like you can do both, or you can go to school, but you got to get your degree. That's how important education. He felt that education was the great equalizer in society, and that it gave him the opportunities that he needed to get out of his circumstance. So, I was going to school, and just winning the championships. Watching Pat Riley, emerge as the leader that he was, like Kareem embracing yoga. And, he played till he was 42 years old.
And my dad never let me forget that. He said the longevity. He would always tell me Kareem is the greatest player he ever saw. And I saw Kareem, it was towards the end of his career. Obviously, remember the sky hook and the goggles and all that. But he's like, you don't understand. He said, especially back then, playing 20 plus years at an elite level, still winning championships. And it is because of these like progressive viewpoints that Kareem had, and with the yoga and just learning and writing. And he was a poet, or is, still like a great, but so growing up 80s, Showtime Lakers, working for this organization that really is defining glamour, right, in Los Angeles. And it's funny because 5 years prior, before Magic was drafted, probably right when your dad bought the team, again, the famous, the apocryphal tale is that they used to have to show the NBA finals on tape delay. It wasn't even enough of a sport that people would want to watch it live. It was on tape delay. And then of course, Magic plus Magic and Bird redefined everything, with the Lakers being the premier event. And you're in the middle of it, but you're learning and being entrusted with more and more responsibility. So despite the fun that you were having, right? Yeah. You're learning and growing. Your dad saw something in you from a young age, like, she's going to run the Lakers. Did you feel that, like, growing? Obviously, you didn't know verbatim until, the David Stern story. But were you like, I am on this path and this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do?
I just really wanted to work in the family business. And when I was growing up, it was real estate. So I thought I was going to be in real estate development. That, I would have loved to do that too. That's still like kind of like a hobby of mine, is just, I love property and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to be in the family business. So then when he pivoted to sports and entertainment, then that became, just whatever you need me to do, Dad. Like, what do you want me to do? That's awesome. And so, he saw that I, when he challenged me, that I rose to the challenge and wouldn't get frustrated, and I wouldn't quit, and I stuck with it.
Now, during that time, if I'm not mistaken, or at some point, you actually lived in a significant piece of LA history.
Yeah.
Right? Pickfair.
Yes.
Which is the Douglas Fairbanks and, oh my God, I'm just
Mary Pickford
home. That is the home that essentially made Beverly Hills what it is today. Because Beverly Hills was most known for auto racing, the Beverly Hills Speedway back in the 1910s. Beverly Hills Hotel was there, but it was kind of off the beaten path for what Beverly Hills was. And the Speedway would draw all the tourists, and that was why people came to Beverly Hills. But then Pickford and Fairbanks moved in, built Pickfair, and then that followed kind of the floodgates of, celebrities and esteemed, people that really made Beverly Hills that community that it is today. But you lived in this house, and this is like a tourist attention magnet. What was that like? This is genuine LA history.
So at that time, like you said, in the early 1900s, Beverly Hills was the country.
Yeah.
Like the stars lived in Hollywood.
Love it.
Excuse me.
Lima bean fields, by the way.
And so there was nothing north of Sunset Boulevard, except Pickfair. It was originally a hunting lodge. So people would go there and like hunt up in the hills.
Wow.
And so when Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks met filming a movie, they were both married to other people. And so they fell in love, and they both had to get divorces, and people didn't do that. It was huge scandal.
Right.
So they were kind of shunned by Hollywood. So that's why they had to move to Beverly Hills. But imagine back then, they were such big stars because it was silent film.
Yeah.
So there was no language barrier. So you could watch a film in China or Russia because there was no
translated,
right?
You were,
like it was all just emotions.
Yeah.
And so they were like worldwide celebrities, and so they bought this lodge, and they had a swimming pool, but it was actually like a lake that they turned into a swimming pool. Okay. And then that meant every other movie star, because they set the bar. So then it was because everybody was like, we need a swimming pool. Everybody needed a swimming pool all of a sudden. So they were like trendsetters. And of course the media dubbed the house Pickfair for Pickford and Fairbanks. And then Charlie Chaplin moved up there, and it just became like the place to be. Well, then of course, when royalty or any big dignitary came through Los Angeles, we didn't have the White House. What we had was Pickfair.
The industry,
and so that they opened the home to whoever, like kings and queens and, anybody, that it became like the center of Los Angeles and important for our, having meaning.
For the culture, it really was. And like, to your point, FDR, I know, visited there. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt went to Pickfair, amongst other luminaries and dignitaries. But you grew up there.
Yeah. So what happened was, I'll never forget watching the 1978 Oscars, and they gave Mary Pickford an Oscar, just for her legendary work or whatever, a commemorative Oscar. And she was literally in a bed accepting the Oscar.
Oh, wow.
And she was very advanced age. And I'll never forget seeing her, everybody's grandma. It was just so cute. And she had her hair done and she was holding the Oscar. So now, 2 years later, I'm living with my dad because my parents were divorced. And I was going to start school at USC. And my dad said, well, why don't you live here while you go to school? And that at that time he lived in Bel Air. He goes, but I'm going to buy a bigger house. So one day he calls me, he says, meet me at the Polo Lounge. We're going to have lunch and then we're going to go look at this old movie star mansion. He goes, I don't, I'm not sure. He goes, it's just some movie stars. And I go, are we going to Pickfair? And he goes, yeah, that's it. How'd you know? And I go, Dad, I love old movies. That's everything. So I went and got a throwaway camera and made him take pictures of me in every room because I thought it was the only time I'd ever see Pickfair in my life. So we go there and the house is very run down and
interesting.
It was not a house you would go into and think, oh, this is where we're going to live.
It's seen better days.
But it was 3.5 acres. And it was on the market for $8 million as a probate sale because it was part of her will that the house had to be sold and the money go to charity. So my dad put in an offer for what he thought the land was worth.
Okay.
And $5 million, and the judge accepted it. So then the next thing I know, we're moving into Pickfair. And my dad, I think, was shocked that they got it, but it was such a good deal.
Wow.
And then we spent, a couple of years restoring the house to its glory. Yeah. And it really was a special place. And I ended up becoming a tour guide because we had this beautiful lawn that we could do events for 300 or 400 people. And then if they paid a little bit more, then I would do a guided tour in the house. And
to add to the rest of your responsibilities.
Well,
right.
I mean, I really became the mistress of the house, and my dad thought it was very interesting how, he was making headlines in sports, but all of a sudden the entertainment section started covering. So it was really that marriage of sports and entertainment. Yeah. And we would have, Dionne Warwick and Rick James and all these people come and perform out on the lawn and raise money for, all the different, cancer and heart disease and whatever charity. We could open up the house and make, hundreds of thousands of dollars. How do you not do that?
Right.
So that we became it became an important part of LA.
Passing from LA royalty to LA royalty.
Yeah.
So,
and it even got my dad a date with Elizabeth Taylor. That was
really?
He thought that was pretty cool.
That is really cool. Dang. Talk about legendary. Okay. LA history. What I want to talk about for a sec, little sidebar. LA neighborhoods, modern times. Where are your favorite neighborhoods to hang out? And if you have places that you like to eat, what are some of your favorite restaurants?
Oh, man. I think it's just when you go to a neighborhood, you have someone tell you where to go, right?
Time.
You just take referrals and, I mean, that's what's so great about LA is every little neighborhood is different, and every neighborhood has their gem. There has their, Big Al like diner, or deli or whatever, like that. Oh, everybody has to go to this or do that. So, I don't have a list.
Fair enough. And you're always working, and I think your responsibilities are as such that you're probably not doing a lot of casual hangouts at places, right. Which is fair. Let me ask you another question. Okay. This is for me personally. Okay. What is your relationship like with the Dodgers?
We're very close. The owners of the Dodgers they bought Phil Anschutz's Lakers stock. So they own about 27-30% of the Lakers stock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we work very closely together, and those two teams have always historically had a good working relationship, but they do a Kobe night every year.
Yeah,
now.
they do. Dang right.
And it's I really appreciate that. Like, for those of us who love Kobe, everything that we can do to celebrate him, and so we do a Dodger night, the like second game of the season, I think. Third, I forget which game. Right. They brought the trophy to a Lakers game, and Freddie Freeman and the players came out on the court.
I think when they showed Ohtani, it was a massive deal. That was like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So Dodgers and Lakers, great relationship, which I'm so glad to hear, because I always say nothing galvanizes Los Angeles like the Lakers and Dodgers, like, right. Period. Like, it's a great city with so much pride, and we all love LA, but like when the Lakers are good and the Dodgers are good, that's when it gets really exciting. Magic Johnson, part owner of the Dodgers now, but no longer has shares in the Lakers. Is that correct?
Right. He sold his shares. When he retired, he had years left on his contract. So my dad converted those, years of his contract into Laker stock. And so he owned a little over 3%.
That's so cool.
And he sold his shares to Patrick Soon-Shiong, who owns the LA Times.
Mm-hmm. I have thoughts about that. We won't get into that here, but I know he's part Laker owner, so respect. Now, going back to Kobe. Yeah. I want to ask the same question I asked with Magic. Where were you when you got the news, and what was that like for you? Because you guys were close. You had a good relationship, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always thought that he would, he and I would work together on the Lakers. I mean, he was always available to help me with, decisions and strategies, and he was a very dear friend. And, I don't really like to talk about that day. Right. Like, so, I mean, I know it was hard to accept and process. And I literally that night, I woke up with tears, like tears were coming. I didn't even know that was possible, crying in your sleep.
Wow.
But it was like, it's still heartbreaking. And Gianna was going to change, what we're seeing, what Caitlin Clark's doing now. Like, I think Gianna was going to be that type of player too, and just bring, fans and excitement. And, it's really put a void in my life that can never be filled.
Wow. And you guys do a lot to honor Kobe, of course. And, the city with the mural, more than 600 murals of Kobe around the city. So important to keep that memory alive. Very, what he's done goes without saying. Okay. Question. I'm not going to ask you who your favorite Lakers, your Mount Rushmore. It's an unfair question, but throw out some names of under the radar Lakers, maybe throughout time, that have had an impact for you personally. Even if it's personally, it doesn't need to be on the court, like so-and-so was so good or anything. Is there anybody that sort of stands out?
I mean, there's so many. And, I mean, I had this 15-year relationship with Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
And that was another great time in my life in terms of learning how a team comes together as a family.
Yeah.
And I remember, getting in a fight with him because Thanksgiving comes, like a month or two into the season, and everybody now it's kind of, you're hitting a wall. Like it's tough. And I remember he would always have practice on Thanksgiving. And I'm like, why can't you just give them a day off? Like what, these poor guys. And he goes, first of all, they'll have plenty of time to get home to have Thanksgiving dinner.
Okay.
He said, but we have to come together on holidays because I'm trying to show them that they're a family too. And families are together on holidays. Like, oh, I never looked at it that way. So, just the kind of things that he did to bring the players together. And I think that's like Kobe really embraced it,
right.
Because Phil was there, for the first 5 years, 3 championships with Shaq and Kobe and the back when Staples Center first opened. And it was great. Then he left. And, 2 years later, they brought him back. And he and Kobe won 2 more together with Pau Gasol.
Yeah.
Think of all the special players like Vlade Divac,
yes.
who really was like the first Euro, because everybody was like, why are they drafting a player from Europe? Like the best players are American. Nobody has Europeans. And Vlade kind of changed all that. He was like, he had the accent and his English when he first started.
And smoking cigarettes and all this. You're like, wait a minute.
It was like he really just everybody adored him. But, he was part of the trade that got us Kobe.
Wow.
And right.
Yes,
and so
Hornets. That's right.
That was hard to do. And then, Pau Gasol and Derek Fisher and Fish, he was another player that left when Phil left and Shaq left, that came back and was there for 2 more and, knew how to run the triangle offense and, such an important part of Lakers. I mean, Michael Cooper, who went into the Hall of Fame, and we're going to retire his jersey in January.
Yay! And 21, right?
Yeah, 21.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like with the big socks.
Alley-oop, like Chick Hearn coined the term alley-oop. I want to say Magic to Cooper or something, yeah?
And so, I mean, it's like, it's endless, and there's players that have been on the Lakers that aren't on the Lakers right now, that are playing for other teams currently, that if I brought up their names, I'd get in trouble for tampering. So I have to take those off the table.
Totally fair.
But a lot of them are on my Instagram, like posted pictures with them. But, I've lived, I've seen so much. Like, I think of a kid like Jordan Farmar, who went to UCLA, and, Phil was kind of notorious with the Bulls. Like, he hated rookies. He never played rookies, right?
Right.
But he needed a point guard. So at that time, we had just started the G League, which at that time was known as the D League.
Right.
And so we played our games in the afternoons of Laker games so that Phil could watch the players play.
Wow.
So we literally had Jordan Farmar playing a 2:00 game for the Defenders. That's what they were called at the time. Now they're the South Bay Lakers. And then activated, Phil was like, okay, he can play. So activated that night playing for the Lakers. So he's like, awesome. He played his own doubleheader, just like, and now he's like, he lives in Nevada. He's like a property developer.
Farmer?
Yeah. And he got he flies airplanes.
Dang.
I mean, I love this kid.
Listen,
you know?
I know you're a USC Trojan. I'm a UCLA Bruin, but as you know, I embrace both. My UCLA fan friends kind of hate this, but I've always been a supporter of USC athletics. But I got to say, there's something special about UCLA players, whether it's basketball, football, or baseball. Very cerebral. They always have longer careers than like people. They're like underdrafted and then end up having these like long, successful careers. Yes. So it's no surprise that in their post career, somebody like Farm are dynamic and like, that was a perfect story. I just want to give a special shout out to Anthony Peeler, Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones. That was an era of Lakers that like, I don't think they won any titles during that era, but like that was a fun team. Even Eldon Campbell had some moments. That was the kind of Lakers era that I sort of feels, again, if you don't hang a banner for the Lakers, maybe you don't get the same sort of credit because the standards are high, but that was a fun time. Let's talk about women of wrestling. That is so interesting to me. I was a big WWF fan, it was called back then. Now it's WWE. And then Glorious Ladies of Wrestling would be like the companion show. Mm-hmm. And, it's always super interesting seeing that. How did you get involved in it? So modern and women of wrestling is now like the modern version of Glow. Is that fair to say? Yes. How'd you get involved in that? And like, what does that mean to you?
Well, my partner, who I met through roller hockey, he started Glow in the 80s, sold it, then got involved in other sports, including roller hockey. That's how our paths crossed. Yeah. Then roller hockey folds. And, he brought back Glow as Women of Wrestling, and he kept inviting me to come see, matches. And I thought it was like Jello wrestling or oil wrestling or mud wrestling. A little different, yeah. I thought it was like, like just not anything that I would want to be involved in. And I didn't really follow wrestling growing up. Yeah. And so I finally ran out of excuses and I had to go see a match. And I asked my friend Stacy, like, hey, can you go with me to this? We'll stay 5 minutes.
Just so I could say, I was there. I checked it out. Yeah.
And as soon as I walked in, I was like, oh my God, I love this, because I did collect comic books as a kid. Okay. So now all of a sudden I'm seeing these characters coming to life, and they're like good versus evil, right? Like it was everything it was like my comic book coming to life right in front of me. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And so that was like in the 2000s. Then, the market, kind of dried up and he wasn't doing anything. And then in 2014, I go, David, I think the time is right to bring women of wrestling back. And my thought was, I'd seen finally the change that didn't exist back in the 70s and 80s, that now all of a sudden girls were playing sports in school. Yeah. Title IX changed everything. I know for me, it changed for me because at Palisades High School, they said, Jeanie, you're going to be on the girls' golf team this year. And I go, I've never played golf in my life. And they go, well, because of Title IX, if we don't have a girls' team, we can't have a boys' team. So we'll teach you. Whoa. Okay. And so, I learned the game of golf and we won the city championship my senior year. So but it was so few and far between. But now 20 years later, because you could earn a scholarship and you could play Division I and you could get your education paid for. Girls started playing sports, and that was the change that we needed to make the WNBA, to make women's sports. Now women are the consumers because they understand what it's like to be part of a team, and they want to support that. And so I've seen this big change. And I said to David, I think we need to bring women of wrestling back. And because, if you play basketball, there's the WNBA. If you're a female tennis player, you can go on tour, but there's if you're a field hockey player and you're playing Division I, and you have sacrificed since you were 10, 11, 12, going to birthday parties, going to, doing the tournaments, working hard, and you got that scholarship, and your parents are so proud of you because the education's paid for, but now what do you do?
Yeah.
And so we can take an athlete who has that kind of discipline, we'll teach them to wrestle.
Absolutely.
And now we give them a platform, and it's not going to change the world, but it's just, I want to give people, women like me in positions like me, have to create opportunities for other women to shine.
That's so important.
And so the WWE, like, I think they're great, but women never got to be center stage. They were always kind of the sideshow, the undercard. There wasn't a lot of diversity in how, it was like that diversity was like different hair colors, right? Ooh, so, but, and I loved the fact that we could create characters and that the characters are, kind of take an element of who the wrestler is and just magnify it a little bit. And why can't we find the next Rock or John Cena?
Absolutely.
That
person's out there.
Right.
That person's out there.
And it just blows my mind, the level of athletes that we get, come and then if they have the personality that pops, So we have the show is in its third year in syndication, and we're gaining ratings every year. We're also on Vice TV.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever watched Dark Side of the Ring on Vice. It's so good. If you like WWF and WWE, just watching the history. Wrestling is something everybody relates to. And for me, it's like, I want the message to young women to from wrestling that, it's like good versus evil. Some of the wrestlers have the, wrong opinions on things, but they're willing to stand up and fight for what they believe in. Yeah. And that's what I want the young women to see, is like, you take a stand, you take a position and fight for it, and be able to debate it and argue it and believe in something. And that's what these wrestlers do. And that's important to me.
It's really important having that platform for the passion, the performance, and like you said, kind of just empowering people. It's really interesting because my relationship with wrestling, I loved it. And then I was like, oh, this is so dumb, it's fake. But then you go back and watch it, the artistry, the performing, and the athleticism, and you're like, this really is like pretty incredible. So that's okay. Now, tell me about the tequila. I am a huge notorious tequila person. How did that come together? And who? Tell me about the ownership group first.
Yeah, it's called Soro, and what happened was Michael's now since sold the Charlotte Hornets, but Michael Jordan was Charlotte, Wes Edens with the Milwaukee Bucks, Wick Grousbeck with the Boston Celtics, and myself were members of the labor committee that would negotiate over collective bargaining. And when we would take breaks, we get in conversations, and, for me, here I'm sitting with Michael Jordan, like I'm sitting at the same table with, it's blowing my mind.
You get starstruck?
For Michael Jordan, he's like the ultimate. Oh my gosh.
Come on, you grew up with Magic Johnson. You were Kobe's friend slash employer.
I know, but you don't understand, the 90s were bad. I love the Anthony Peeler and the Nick Van Exel and the Eddie Jones
But you
era.
were putting up banners. Let's call it what it is.
Michael Jordan was Elvis. And my phone, people would call up and say, can you give me Bulls tickets when they're in town?
Yeah.
you're calling the Lakers office. Like that's the only game people wanted to go to.
Yes,
like people went insane for this man. And you know what? I was at the All-Star game in '86 in Chicago when in the slam dunk contest, it was like, I go, oh my gosh, men can fly.
Yeah.
Like
Air Jordan.
Like is unbelievable. And that movie was great. And my now husband, had a small part in that if you didn't notice. But anyway.
Shout out. Can I say his name?
Jay Moore.
Shout out Jay Moore. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
But anyway, so we're sitting at one of the breaks and we all realize that we love tequila.
Yeah.
And so we kind of talk about which ones we like, but why we like this one better. But there wasn't a perfect one.
Yeah.
And we're like, we could probably do better. We could probably come up with our own. And of course, with Michael Jordan, everything he touches turns to gold. Like he is, of course, the most competitive person I've ever seen in my life, but like he's brilliant. He really is. He's marketing, I mean, if you see the movie Air, his mom, like he's just the best. And we put in the hours and did the taste testing and we came up with our formula. But then COVID happened. Like we launched in 2018, then COVID. And what did everybody watch? They watched The Last Dance.
Yes, absolutely.
And what does he have during his whole interview? He's got Soro Tequila.
Yeah.
He's drinking Soro. And our sales just took off because people couldn't go out. So they wanted
a lot of drinking going on.
By a lot of drinking
COVID,
going on.
absolutely.
So it really established our brand. And but people are like, well, how could you be in business with Michael and your competitors? I go, because we compete. That's what we do. It's like like how you compete with your best friends.
Of course.
You want to beat they're the most fun to beat, right? And so, it just killed me that the Celtics won this year, that they got to championship banner 18, but they deserved it, man. They made a run that was
Wait, so closing out the tequila though, still going strong.
We just came out with a Cristalino, which is filtered so that it's clear, but it's Arenejo. We have a gold mixture of all three expressions, but
how involved are you in that company? Like compared to, let's say, I'm not compared to your Laker duties, but do you have a lot I'm
an investor, so we have we have a CEO. We have quarterly meetings, and we just brought in some new investors like Serena Williams and Eric Church and Travis Scott, and it's all Derek Jeter, Dustin Johnson, all these guys.
Casual, casual.
That's
investors.
what it's like dealing with Michael. This is like people like Michael he's really as special as ever.
Two things. This might be a bigger question. You can answer this however you want. Comparing Michael and Kobe off the court. I've seen a lot of comparisons on the court. Are there similarities? Are they different? How would you kind of describe that from a cerebral sort of interpersonal aspect?
I mean, they're very different, but both killers, like Stone. But so is Magic. Like
with a smile, though. Magic
did it with a smile.
Sneaky,
right. And but Michael, like you don't mess with Michael. Like he's very intimidating. Kobe, it was like like him just setting his mind and watching him strategize, and he helped me so much in some of the things that when I had the conflict with my brother and him explaining why certain things, because the team was suffering in terms of missing the playoffs year after year after year, and what that does to the psyche of a team. And, and I mean, just a deep thinker, Kobe. And, but like such a great friend to share his time and expertise.
Seemed like a warm-hearted guy, right? Like at the end of the day, despite all and he was, I say, to be great in the NBA in any sport and almost any walk of life, you need to be an assassin, right? Like you need to be great. You need to be this assassin. And all this stuff we saw on Kobe, post-retirement, you're like, wait a minute. Like, of course he was on the court and the work ethic, but you're like, what a warm-hearted seeming guy. Like that's really neat to know that was the case. And then what was I going to ask you as well? I totally blanked out. I got to ask. So the modern Lakers, today's Lakers.
Yes.
Anthony Davis, spectacular. LeBron, all-time legend. It really bothers me, and I will go on record saying that a lot of Laker fans have some negative feelings towards LeBron, and I'm a complete LeBron supporter. On and off the court, work ethic, what he's accomplished, what he means to the Lakers. He hung a banner with the Lakers. And he's still great. He's still absolutely great. Tell me your take on the modern Lakers right now. And again, of course, I know you can't get into detail, but what's the outlook? And how do you kind of manage a long-term outlook knowing that he can't play forever, I mean, he's already approaching, I think, more than games than Kareem, right? Didn't he already? I know he broke his points record.
Yeah, he did. Well, you got to remember, Kareem went to college for 4 years.
Yeah, UCLA.
So he, he didn't have as much time in the league as LeBron coming right out of high school. But, I think what the goal of the league and during collective bargaining was to bring parity, so that every team on any given night, can win a championship, can compete. And that's what the system, now you're seeing, the system has created. If you look at the Western Conference, there's going to be a team that's over 500 that won't even make the play-in. And it's not fair, and it's frustrating, it's hard, but it's very different than when, in the 80s without a salary cap. And, David Stern made a, what he wished he had never said it kind of quote, where they said, well, who do you want to see play in the finals? And he said, the Lakers play the Lakers, because that's who draws the numbers. So, is parity really what the fans want? I mean, that's what we've created with our system of how, but the great thing about sports is they always evolve, and nothing is set in stone, and how people, especially we're going through how are people consuming our product? Is it, by their phone? Is it by cable? Is it by streaming? Is it,
NBA seems like a steady diet of highlights that people kind of watch, right? As opposed to, let's say, tip off to the end of the game, which is very different, because I see all this narrative about NBA ratings and everything like that, but I also know that people are sending me highlights all the time. And like you said, they're consuming in a completely different way. And I think NBA was sort of at the forefront of that, really, just like to embrace quote unquote new media first. And then now it almost seems like the narrative is like, well, the TV ratings aren't high enough though. But it's like, but that's not necessarily. Yeah,
but TV, the audience has diminished. So how do you have higher ratings when people are cutting the cord?
Yeah.
And how do you count them? So that's where I'm like, okay, they're going to make that be the headline. But obviously with the new TV deal that our commissioner negotiated, they don't agree with that. Clearly our product is delivering not only a great audience, but a younger audience, which is always important to advertisers.
It's a fun, fast game, and the cup and the courts. All right, Jeanie Buss, just closing out, last question. I always end with one thing to do in LA this week. Can be anything that you want to do. If you and Jay have a weekend, a free day, is there a special place you like to go, or an underrated place that you like to go, or a classic place, that one thing that you would do in LA this week?
what I ask everybody to do is support your movie theater. We have to make sure that movie theaters don't go away. It's a shared experience that, I know everybody likes watching things from the comfort of their couch, but there's something really special about, the time that you spend with friends and family, going to a movie theater, going through that process, sharing popcorn. And I don't want that business to go away. So I try to go to the movies every weekend.
Wow.
And even if like my schedule is such that I can't, I'll buy tickets and just be part of the box office. I just don't want to see that go away. And so I ask people to, it was something that I shared with my dad, and his favorite candy was these things. I don't even think they exist anymore, called Jordan almonds.
Okay.
Do you remember
they
that?
Were like the colored, they were like pastel colors
awful,
almost.
Right? But that was his favorite. So he would give me one of those when we watch movies. Yeah. And for him, he was so busy. Like what he loved to do was, because we could go to Westwood, right? And you could see a bunch of movies. So we'd see like 3 or 4 movies in a day,
right?
And he would have the schedule, and it was just, those were such great memories. And people, please, take your mom, take your grandma to see Wicked this weekend if you can, and really have a girls' day. And
Sonic 3.
And thank you, Taylor Swift, for releasing that concert movie, because that really reminded people of how great it is to have those shared experiences.
What a brilliant answer. I do got to give a shout out, because you said it, to Gardena Cinema, which is the last family-owned single-screen theater in Los Angeles, run by the Kim family. And I just met Judy Kim, and it's a wonderful historic place, opened in 1946. And they're struggling. There's no, and I'm going to do an episode where they're asking for donations and help, because again, this is family-owned. It's a small business, but it's a lot of money to run. So, support your local theater, support the cinema. Brilliant answer from a brilliant person. Jeanie Buss, thank you so much for being here. I truly mean important, influential, innovative, and honestly, I couldn't be any more honored for you to be here. So thank you very, very much for coming to the studio today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you're doing, because these pieces, these stories about LA are so important, and it's a gift that you're giving to the people who live here and love LA.
We love LA, greatest city on the globe. Thank you guys for watching. Like, follow, subscribe, follow Jeanie Buss, go to the Laker games, but go to a movie this weekend. She is right. That is so important, the shared experience. And thank you all for watching. Jeanie Buss, thank you again. All right, y'all. It's been a minute.